Where the hell have you guys been? I've been looking for you guys for what seems like forever. Hey, welcome back. It's actually been, I think, about 4 months since I've done a video, and I want to thank those who have reached out. Everything is well, everything is fine, all is good. A few things kind of got in the way of me doing these videos. First and foremost, I would have to say was NFL football completely occupied my time. I'm a bit of a junkie. I'm in a couple of different pools, and so all of my time and effort is going towards that, and now that's pretty much over. But another part that's kind of just as important is I honestly ran out of things to talk about. And I didn't want to make a video just to make a video because, and I thought if I'm not adding value or giving you guys some information that I think is going to help, then it didn't make a lot of sense to just put up a video for the sake of putting one up. So I did do some other things as well, and one of them I'm actually considering putting into or starting up a topic of videos on, and it's a thing called Home Assistant. And what it is, it's a way to monitor the energy and usage of power, gas, and everything like that in your home. For the most part, completely free. All of the software I use is obviously called Home Assistant, open source. Not, I wouldn't say it's an overly easy thing to do, but once you kind of get the hang of it, it's a very, very cool thing to do. And the biggest thing is it allows you to monitor and watch the things that you're spending your money on in your home. And it's really been enlightening for us. So, the other thing, too, I spend a lot of time getting into and following politics, both in the US and Canada, more so the US. And oh boy, what a time for us to be alive. But today we are going to talk about stocks once again. And my wife and I have some really big plans for investing in 2024. So I thought to start back on this little journey again, I will do a little recap of everything that we have, how it's been doing, and where we've actually been adding money to. So stick around. So the first thing I would start out with is those that were watching videos in the past knew that I had mentioned a goal of attaining $5,000 between my wife and I in dividend income for 2023. And I'm very happy to say, even with some things like TransAlta Renewables more or less going away, it was a very good dividend pair. Other dividend pairs like Northwest Healthcare chopping their dividends substantially. We did attain just over 5,000. I think it was around $5,030 for the year. So we were quite pleased with that. And what I've got on the screen right now is a total of 20 different stocks and ETFs that between my and my wife, either both of us are in, or at least one of us are in. And I'm not going to go over each and every single one of them. There are some very poorly performing stocks that do not pay dividends. They're more growth stocks that I took a chance on. Fortunately, not a ton of money in there. But I'm not going to really go over a lot of those, but I will talk about the ones that I have historically been talking about. And what's very interesting, I know over the course of my last videos that I did all of 20 and 23, 20 of in 20 of 20, let me try that a third time. In all of 2023, it's good to be back. I did talk about different styles of investing and looking at pure growth versus looking at growth with dividend or income, and then looking at strictly income. And these top three are really good examples of all three different scenarios. If you look right on top, Alimentation Couche-Tard, I've done countless videos where I've talked about them. I did an analysis of them in one video last year. It is a great example. If you look at column R and then column S, column R is strictly the capital return that we've received within the stock. So that is me buying the stock at price X and the value of that stock or the price of that stock today at value Y. And over the course of 2023, that stock made us 31%, not including any dividend. And you'll remember that I did talk quite substantially throughout the year about how their dividend was actually horrible. I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 56 cents or something for the entire year. Meaning that gets broken up 14 cents, I think, per quarter. But I did talk at length about how their dividend increases were increasing at 15 and 20+% every time they made a dividend increase. And basically what that means is they've gone from a few years back of say 3 cents to what is right now currently 14 cents every quarter. So still not a lot of money, but the actual increases have been substantial as a percentage. And my hope, and I know I talked about this a lot, is, if they can keep those percentages going, then in a few years, somewhere 5, 6, 7 years, they're going to be paying a dividend like Fortis, who everyone believes and agrees is a very, very solid stock with a very solid dividend. But the growth within the company, I know I talked about last year, they've been just buying up everything across Europe, down in the United States. The growth of the capital within the company has been absolutely fantastic. But you see there, the difference between the capital return and the total return is less than 1%, which is pretty much their dividend. Um, the second one on there is Manulife, and that's an example of very decent growth within the capital money that you put in, but also a pretty decent dividend. We're looking at just under 7% there, 6.5% maybe, of dividend payment within Manulife. But we've also had, a 22.5% capital increase. I did read a lot last year that there was a lot of people very frustrated with Manulife, as historically, in reality, it would go from $21 to $22 up to $27, $28, and then back down to $22 and then back up to. So it was almost like a play for, I wouldn't say day traders, but, traders that are looking to make some quick money and then get out, because every number of months it was doing that. Lately, it's been kind of steady and it's been staying up. So that's been really, really good. But also that dividend, for older folks like myself and my wife, very, very intriguing dividend. And the third example there, Exchange Income Corporation, is one where that stock price, for us, has been very good. We got in at a very good price. It's been pretty volatile though, because the stock price has been up by itself, say almost 10%, but then goes back down. And really, it's just the waves of the market, if you will. It's not really anything more than just the market conditions. But again, very solid dividend that's brought that 3% capital increase up to a total return of 10 and three quarters, almost 11% of a return. So again, those top three stocks that we have there, really good examples of, where you're going for capital, where you're going for a combination of capital and dividend, and when you're looking for more stability within the price of the stock, but a decent dividend. The next two up there, Fortis and CN Rail, again, two stocks I've talked a fair bit about last year. Fortis is, again, it's the darling of the Toronto Stock Exchange. 49, I believe this year is the year it'll finally hit Dividend King status, meaning 50 consecutive years of dividend increases. And as you can see on the screen there, we've made a decent 4%, which is not great in the capital appreciation. But when you add in that dividend that again keeps growing year after year and keeps increasing, 4% becomes almost 9.5%. And again, and talking with the first three that I talked about as well, when you consistently get, those dividend increases year after year. I know I did a video in 2023 about asking you, are you getting raises on your stocks? And what I meant by that is, are the dividends that you're getting in those dividend paying stocks, are they increasing every year, or is it the same amount year after year? Because we all know prices go up and things get more expensive for us. So while the capital might be appreciating, it might not be appreciating, are your dividends appreciating? And again, these are stocks that have been around for quite a while, well-established companies that might not be putting a lot of money back into the company to grow, such as Couche-Tard is doing. These are established companies that they've pretty much done all the growth that they're going to do. Now it's time to pay back their shareholders. And again, Fortis is a classic example of just income stability, which is something that really is attractive to seniors. CN Rail, a little bit of growth still happening there. And you can see almost a 7% return over the year for us. But with the dividend, which is, again, similar to, well, not as bad as Couche-Tard, but not great, but decent. That 6.7% goes up to 8.3%. And an 8.3% return, that's fairly decent. And I think most people would agree that that's something that they would accept. After that, we come up on Severia. Severia is one of those stocks. It was a hunch play that I made based on some of the things I've been reading. The healthcare provider that provides assistive equipment and products, if you will, for an aging population. It was a little bit of a sweetheart play for me because I'm part of the aging population. And I can assure people that as we get older, when we get up every morning, we're constantly thinking, maybe what did I do yesterday? Because these bones in certain parts of the body really are hurting, and they didn't used to hurt when I was 20 and 30 years old. So again, decent return, 3.5% on the capital, and they don't have an overly great dividend themselves, but 7.8% return on capital with dividends. We'll take that every day. I'm going to kind of bounce around a little bit here. The next couple I'm going to talk about are the banks. So if you can see there, TD, Scotiabank, and Bank of Montreal actually is not on there. It should be, but it's not. The banks last year took a real beating. I'm of the belief, and I think a lot of people are, not everybody necessarily, but banks are never going to go away, and banks are always going to make you money. Bank dividends are fantastic. So even though the banks took a real beating last year, and the Bank of Montreal, it's unfortunate I didn't put it on here. I don't know why I didn't, but Bank of Montreal I was able to get into at a really, really solid price. Its total return is well over 11%. Excuse me. And I only got myself into Bank of Montreal, I think sometime around late October, November, or something like that. But TD Bank is the one that my wife's in, where I'm in Bank of Montreal. She's in TD. Again, a loss on the year within the capital, but a 3% gain when you include the dividend. Excuse me. And Scotiabank, we both own. Again, Scotiabank, a 5.65% drop in capital, but a 2.3% return to the positive when you add in dividends. And I'm not overly worried there because, as I said, I'm a firm believer that the banks are never going to fail you in the long run. So these short term drops that we've seen with the uncertainty in mortgages and everything going on in the world and such, times are going to get better. And when they do, the banks are going to start doing better. Banks are always near the top when the market is doing well. And currently they're not doing well. So this is actually a time to buy. And I'm going to go to the abysmal bottom area of my list here. Canadian Tire, TELUS, Northland Power, Algonquin Power, Northwest Health, excuse me. You can see every one of those are down, but every one of those are also dividend payers. And if you look at the negative capital growth from the year, or from the, yeah, I guess this is from the year, and then take into account the total return, the total loss on that year is nowhere near as bad as it would have been if they were not dividend payers. Common sense. But the nice part about that is every one of those companies, Northwest Health was really scary for a lot of people because they chopped their dividend. I believe it was in half. And of course, it just tanked. It went from 10, 11, $12, I think even 14 or $15 a couple of years ago. It's now down, I think it hit under $5. But, and again, nobody knows. It's always a guessing game in every stock that you're in. But healthcare properties, I don't know, are they going away? I mean, do we not have bigger problems in our world if the healthcare facilities that we go to, the doctors that we go to see, everything related to our healthcare, if it all goes away, I think that's not the worst of our worries about my stock here. So again, just like the banks, I don't think it's going to be a bad thing in the end. And if anything, it has to recover. And hopefully that dividend gets reinstated. High interest rates cut the dividend, and that was very unfortunate, but I haven't given up on the stock. Northland and Algonquin, both renewable plays. Again, high interest rates because of high debt that they both had. I know Algonquin, I think, was selling off a lot of their renewable portion of their business from the last I read, and we're going more utility based. So if that's the case, I don't look to that one in the future to be necessarily a huge growth, but similar to Fortis, very good stable income if they focus on utilities. And then as far as TELUS and Canadian Tire, what can you say? Like, again, two very large players in their respective areas in Canada. I don't see either one of them going away anytime soon, and both of them pay fantastic dividends. And so, again, I'm not overly worried with either, and still picking up a little bit of Canadian Tire. We're pretty good on TELUS, so that's those ones. The last things I want to leave you with, I know I'm going way over my normal amount of time here, but it's the first one back, so hopefully you're still with me. We have just gotten into ETFs focusing in the US. And that was one thing that I realized last year, that everything that we had was in Canada only. So if you have a look at Tech Achievers, at the total market, and the S&P 500, the S&P 500 stock that we got into is, or that I got into, is ZSP, which is Bank of Montreal's S&P 500 stock. VFB is a very, very popular one. This is basically the exact same thing. It's just a lot less price and probably has a little bit less um, opportunity for growth, but still growth in the S&P is expected to be very, very good, and it pays a dividend. All three of them you'll see here, the capital return and total return is exactly the same, only because we're so new. I just got into this in January for my wife and I. We haven't even received a dividend yet, but all three of them are up already. So the S&P 500 ZSP.TO is the one that I'm in. Total market is the entire U.S. stock market. My wife is in that one, and that one is XUU.TO. And you can see there 2.34% return. And then Tech Achievers, both those, by the way, sorry, those last two also pay a quarterly dividend. Tech Achievers is tech industry and all based within the US, and they pay a monthly dividend. I'm really pleased with that one. That one is a Hamilton ETF. It's HTA.TO, I believe. Very, very solid group of companies in there, and a monthly dividend, I believe it's 12 cents per month on a stock that is $16 or $17. So quite pleased with that. So that's going to wrap up all of the stocks that we're currently in, the new ones that I've started to get us into, and those are going to be interesting. I'm going to really be keen to follow those this year and see how those ETFs do. And I might also add another ETF or two. Looking at our list of stocks that we're in right now, I really don't see anything that I'm overly excited to get out of. But I'm also at the same point, there's only a few of them that I really want to get more of. The rest, I'm really quite happy with where we're at. And the other thing too, I guess I should have said this at the start, these are all percentages of capital return and return with dividends. Other than Fortis, I believe, combined, my wife and I, other than Fortis, which I think is around 13% of our total portfolio, almost every other stock does not exceed 8-9%, with the majority of them being somewhere in around the 7 to 8%. And again, that's that diversification that people always talk about. When certain segments of the market might be up, other segments are down. As I always say, stock was up, stock was down. So diversifying that and not having too much into one individual stock is, I think, a good idea, because if any real tragic or bad news came to one individual stock and it's 50% of your portfolio, well, we got a problem. ETFs, the one thing nice about ETFs is if you had 50% of your money in an ETF, most ETFs have a real ton of stocks within them. And I'm not talking 10 or 15, I'm talking 50 or 100, some 1,000 potentially. So, and somebody manages that for you. So having a large volume of your capital in an ETF is all dispersed within all those companies. And if any one or two or five of those companies have hard times, the manager of that ETF can simply sell out some and get some other stock, or increase a position in something else that's doing a lot better. So something to be said there for ETFs, although I also don't think they make the return on your capital like individual stocks do. Good Lord, what a blabbermouth. I can't believe that I've gone on for almost 20 minutes in my first video back. And if you've stuck around, you actually deserve an award. Anyways, thanks for hanging out. It is good to be back, and I certainly hope to do these weekly like I did last year. And if you're so inclined and you like this video, please hit that subscribe button and tell your friends. Take care, and until next time, we'll see you soon.